fantastic to
good
for all of us. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome to give him a little update if you want, Oliver, while I pull up the agreements.
Well, I mean, we've been going pretty full steam ahead. Samu and Yonu who are on this call are also working with us, as well as other people who are not on this call. And we've essentially expanded the team quite a lot. So we're now 7 people working and doing our best to coherently come up with practical solutions to run decentralized organizations and create some type of scalable system that can have a large impact on the world. It's definitely not been easy the whole way, but we've faced the challenges with openness and curiosity and continue to as we keep learning and growing on this path.
good.
I'm going to screen share Oliver and Samer, and I want to see if how to do this on Notion real quick. So what I've done here at the bottom is I have divided consolidated agreements. Okay, so this is where we've divided them, and since we're doing this with a larger group, I want to just make a different copy of the universal that we can decide as a team if we want to integrate. I mean, really, it's a lot of us right now, unless other people show up. So in here is the universal. So this is universal or ecosystem. So Stephen, as you know, a couple things that have been updated is we've obviously went from just general agreement fields into specific ecosystem and ASPO agreement fields. So we've adopted a organizational structure and a ecosystem structure that, well, we had an ecosystem structure, but we've adopted an organizational structure to officially fit the agreement fields. And so this is the ones that pertain to universally or ecosystems. So there's some of the old ones in here and we can just breeze through them, but how do I copy this and just drag it to a personal workspace for now, maybe? Create a private one for today? Samer, I couldn't hear you.
Just click duplicate on the 3 dots or on the block of it and just drag the new block to your private space.
Drag it, cool. Duplicate.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Yeah, click duplicate.
And just drag it over to private. Drag it over to somewhere in here. It's going to be inside of, I don't know, it's not doing it. It's not.
Hey, can you send me a copy
Yeah,
of
drag it
this
to the
when we're
bottom of the
done?
prompter, so it's going to be a new one.
Add a new one, untitled, and then drag it to there.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
Hey, send me a copy of this when we're done. That'd be great.
Okay, I will. I can give you access to it. Even I could probably just give you access to the one I drag over right now. I throw a link in the. So this didn't
Sure.
copy over. Something happened just now. So I'm gonna have to try it again. Let's duplicate.
Sorry, what you did is you put it inside one of the other pages. I think the value and support.
Oh,
Private.
here it is. It's
Okay,
an
you can do it
untitled
again.
now. This is okay. Now I make a link here for you guys. So if you want to come along, make it public for now. And for today, I'll allow editing. Just let's make agreements on editing if we're going to do multiple people. I think we're just going to read through them and coherently make small changes versus like everyone going crazy. So
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Into the chat. There's the link. All right. And if there's any more questions you have, Steve, we can give another couple minutes, or we can dive straight in.
No, it's fine. We'll go straight in. That'll be good.
All right. Okay.
So when I click on this link, it's going to be you're going to be live making changes to it. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of like Google
Okay.
Docs, same as Google Docs.
Okay.
All right, and we can take turns reading a few of these so that it doesn't get boring, me reading them all. But I'll start it out. I shall maintain the RTT, which needs a link. So let's call out for a link here. Wait, how do I comment?
So Steve, for reference, the RTT stands for the Roots Truth Templates, and it's a definition we have in the system, which is to ensure the health and thriving of all life. It's like a value which we design around how can we ensure health and thriving.
Roots Truth System. Okay.
Root Truth Template.
Root Truth Templates.
Yeah, and I actually have a little write-up here that I wrote around it, and a screenshot. Wait, the screenshot may not be applicable. So I was writing a little bit. This isn't official, but oh, thank you. But it's some from spiritual and physical toxicity to health. So it's health and thriving of all life. Ownership and control to stewardship and access. So when you have ownership and control, you don't have health and thriving. Waste and trash to optimization and repurposing, from abuse to self-love, domination culture and violence to freedom culture and a culture of respect, hoarding, ego, greed to balance, and individualism to shared purpose. And to back those up, we have one definition of each on our little thing. So soon we may have some expanded definitions here to explain those. So anywho, something like that. So health and thriving to support the health and thriving of all life. So I shall maintain RTT as a guide in helping me align with others, define vision, and create agreements at a variety of levels. When making a contract with actors that are outside the ecosystem, and this is capital like that, we strive to ensure RTT is a standard of excellence, even in the other organization. I align with the RTT and agree to exploring how I can improve myself and my environment with the RTT. So this is not as solid of an agreement because there's still some exploration we're doing there, but it just says, in this case, I align with it and agree to exploring. So if there's other agreements that are made as a part of that, then we can make those at that time. Does anyone see that this is, so as we go through, I'll read them, and if anyone sees any improvements, remembering that words and spelling is part of it. Does this need to be a universal agreement? Does it belong as somewhere else? Could it be shortened, especially? Can anything be shortened or made more concise? So yeah. Or is it set? Can it be set in a way that's more concise? Organization.
Hey, Josh, can you give me a few seconds here? It's going real slow. I'm trying to link into to Notion here. For some reason, it's not getting in. So
go ahead. I'm going to continue though. If you.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. You can.
Okay.
I was hoping to get it up on the screen here. So.
All right. So just listen as you're doing that.
Sure.
And there's also the screen here if you just want to do that later.
Yeah, I might just switch back over if I can't get it up here. So.
Okay, this one comes from the Universal Agreements, from the Declaration of Agreements. And it's been gone over many years by 60 people. So it's probably going to be pretty good. A lot of these are probably going to be pretty solid. I agree that if I feel off balance, to honor myself, I will take a moment to recenter. I agree that I am solely responsible for self-care and will not place blame on others around my needs being met or my health deteriorating? Deteriorating. That's interesting word. Almost sounds a little bit like there's some additions to that, so that doesn't come straight from the universal actually. That's been modified. I agree that if I feel off balance to honor myself, I will take a moment to recenter. That's from the universal or the declaration. I agree I'm solely responsible for self-care and will not place blame on others around my needs. So we can ask but not blame if our needs aren't met. What do you guys think about that? Is that necessary as an agreement? And if it is,
I feel like it's self-responsibilizing, but I also feel like there could be kind of a part of an extra part that could balance it out. It could be like, I will choose to ask for help if I really need it. You know, because that's a big part is like, yeah, take responsibility, but also like you're not alone, you know?
yeah. So while I am encouraged to ask for help, I will not place blame on others, something like that.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah. That sounds good. That sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay, let's read it again. I agree that I am solely responsible for self-care, and while I will ask for help when needed, I will not place blame on others around my needs being met or my health deteriorating. I don't think we need or my health deteriorating. Do you? What do you guys think? Am I on mute? Hold on, someone's coming in. What do you guys think? Do you think we need the last part or my health deteriorating? If we just took that off, do you think it'd be okay?
I think you can take it off. Yeah.
I'm so responsible for self-care, and while
Yeah, it seems to be good right there. That seems to pretty much communicate without going into too much more. So,
okay, cool. I agree to honor all agreements and agreement fields I enter into, including agreements made around shared access to information, tools, and platforms. I understand that if I do not honor my agreements, that I may lose access according to the access agreements attached to the project or resource. Okay, so we've consolidated many agreements into this. In this, I will first honor my previous agreements when making new ones, and use correct channels if I choose to update any past agreements. Does that sound good, everything so far?
yeah, that's what we'd expect. Absolutely.
Okay. I agree that if I do not honor space agreements, the group stewarding the space may make this visible for others in the universal field to see. Let me explain the reason on this. Because space agreements are stewarded by those in the space, not by the universal field. And they're not really, they could be anything. They could be, don't, you know, brush your teeth in the living room or whatever. And it could be something that someone mistake, you know, who knows who's stewarding the space and how they handle it. It could be a misunderstanding. And so for if someone's messing up in spaces many times, it's nice to see the track record as a reputation economy So it's sort of saying, while we're not going to punish you on the universal scale or kick you out of the ecosystem, we still do want transparency in how you're in what's going on with people. So if they're constantly disrupting all kinds of spaces, that we could see that. And other people could say, well, I don't know if I want them to join this team or something.
Yeah, but what we might want to do with that one, since they've come in into a particular space, we might want to let the ethics gradients rise up to that, give the person an opportunity to correct his actions. If it comes up to a point where he will not change his actions no matter what, then I can see why it would go further up at that point and start sharing it with other people. To share it too soon might cause unneeded damage that may not be necessary. You know, I think a person should have a chance to change his ways if he's made some mistakes. You know.
What do you guys think about it? Do you think it should be space by space? Maybe like each space should be responsible so that it doesn't have to be in the universal?
Yeah, I would agree. Like a simple example is like a teacher with a student in a classroom. Like the teacher only ever sends the student to the principal when she really like can't deal with the student anymore. You know, so we don't need to go straight to the principal's office, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's move it.
I personally feel that the way it was written captures that it may be reported, the information may be reported, and that they're agreeing to that, that it's still case by case. It's still the person is going to choose if they report it.
It's true.
So if we leave, so if we
could,
sorry, if we keep it,
we could.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Oliver, because you are correct, but it's a little bit ambiguous the way that it's written. So perhaps we could add in parentheses something like that's a little bit more explanatory. A few words that are like in the advent of repeated non-compliance or whatever terminology we want to use.
Maybe disruption.
I think yes, we can, and I think the point was that it's up to the space, so that shouldn't be sitting here in the eco, like for everyone to read. It's kind of, the more agreements in the beginning, the harder it is for people to come on board. And if there's one that doesn't belong here, let's try to keep it in the space agreements, so that so that they can just come in very easily and not have to be like confused by that. Is everyone?
Well, you know, that makes sense. It probably, like you said, if you leave it to this space to work it out, they could put that in their own agreements if they choose to say, look, we can bring this to the universal attention if it doesn't get handled at a local attention. But yeah, you're right. That might not be necessary here in the universal agreements. So
yeah, because some spaces might say, hey, what happens here stays here, period. We're experimenting and we don't want to ever make anyone wrong.
Exactly.
Some might say,
Right,
hey,
right.
What you do here, just to let you know, could be connected to this other database.
In that context, then I would say the way it's written is fine. Like it may be presented to the universal field. It may not. We could add in parentheses, you know, dependent on space agreement there within. But
cool. So I say that we keep it out of here, so that we put it in the space agreements. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good idea. The space agreements can make that clear then for their area and their space, how they want to do that.
Any other opinions? Yes. Yes, for Yano.
Do you need an agreement here just to say that I'll respect the space agreements, and then the space agreements dictate what it is?
Yeah, that's here. Oh wait. I agree to honor all agreements I enter into, including agreements made around shared access to the, I'll put space in here. Tools and platforms. All agreement fields I enter into. That was covered.
Information, spaces, tools, and platforms. Yeah, okay.
No, it's got
Put spaces in there. That should be good.
Okay. I'll just put spaces here, although it says all agreement fields. Those are fields So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
put spaces also though. All right. Does that
Yeah.
sound good to everyone?
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I think that gets the point across, so.
All right. Oh, there it is. I agree to abide by new paradigm space posted when I enter into a physical or digital space. So we don't need that above, right? We don't need spaces up there. We can leave it.
We could leave it. It just makes the point, you know, so
Okay.
nobody can say that it's not understood.
All right. I will only enter space if I am in full alignment with the agreements posted. To do this for a digital space, I will check the relevant locations such as meeting announcements and document headers. So this is reworded from before. It says, I agree to abide by any new paradigm space agreements posted. So it doesn't, it's a lot clearer than it used to be. It's modified. I like the modification. Everyone think that's a good agreement? Anyone? Cameron?
Yeah, I
Sam?
think that's,
Just
Go ahead, Sam.
sorry, go ahead, Steve.
I was just gonna say, I think that's understandable. You know, I mean, person comes into a new space, he has no idea what the rules are. He looks up, he sees the rules. I mean, that's what they are. They are what they are. And if he wants to come in there, you know, he should honor that. If he doesn't want to stay there, that's understandable too. He has that right too. But, you know, while he's there, I think it would be only appropriate. They have that in society currently. You go into a different culture, you know, it's automatic that if you don't fit with the culture, people will, you know, not feel like they want you in their space. So it's almost like a cultural agreement, you know, walking into that space. So
Yeah, standard natural human behavior.
right.
Sam? Sammer, did you have something?
Yeah, it just sound kind of confusing that I agree to obey to any new paradigm space agreement, because according to the consensus system and the act that we're using, people gonna agree before they enter. So just like I obey to any new paradigm without I agree, because otherwise you're gonna put all the agreements in the same place and every new member have to look all the agreement before entering the space.
I don't understand what you're saying. I'm confused.
By the way, it is written right now, it says that any new members joining any physical or digital space agree to all the agreements in there.
Yeah.
Well, but I think they have to look for the agreement before they say that they agree. And if
Yeah, that's
there's
what it's
any
saying.
agreements,
I agree to abide them posted when I enter. So they're posted at the entrance. I could put posted.
yeah, for the ones that already posted.
Yeah, and if it's not, then obviously it does. If it's not posted, then they don't have to. Then there's no space.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not posted, then, you know, then it's going to be on a point by point basis then. So
then people can't be held accountable for something that's not clearly posted. And that's in the stewardship
Right.
agreement. For the stewards, that's in their agreement. So if you're someone or someone's would be responsible for stewarding that space and posting that as a steward.
Right, and you can imagine a scenario where a space doesn't have clearly posted agreements because they didn't think it was needed, and then it starts getting disrupted. And all that would have to happen is the steward of the space would literally just write it down and say, okay, I'm posting these. You now can choose whether you abide by them or not in the space.
Well, there's a stewardship agreement that also does see, that's happening after. So there's one that says you can't change the agreements without the consent of everyone already present. So if you aren't a good steward, that you don't post it and people are there, they're expecting whatever, then you've created a mess and you should lose your stewardship, but you can't just make it, you know. So anyway, those are all stewardship stuff.
Yeah, yeah. If you're a steward, you have to have the responsibilities of the steward. So.
Anywho, that's another agreement field. 2F, I have agreed to being in alignment with the vision and mission. That sounds weird. To being in alignment. I have agreed to being in alignment with the vision and mission of each master plan, gen plan or eco plan I join. Okay, so let's change that now. It's gen plan or eco plan. So,
Steve, this is one of the things which happened in the last 2-3 months, actually, is we went through quite a deep process of seeing whether we should continue calling things master plans, and ended up passing a proposal altogether for calling it Gen Plan, which stands for General Plan, and also the genesis of the organization, how they unfold the gifts over generations and bring their genius into the world. So that's what Gen stands for.
Yeah, it makes it a little nicer for people that it would be too, you know.
male, structured, master plan.
Yeah, the master plan. It's, you know, it has some bad connotation to it. So, so I understand that. That makes sense.
And we didn't have a clear definition. We had master plan and submaster plan, but we didn't have ecosystem plan. Now we have ecosystem plan, gen plan, which is the master plans of the ASPOs within the ecosystem. And then within that ASPO, we have tech spec plans. So spec plans. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Master plans. 2F. I have agreed to being in alignment with the vision and mission of each gen plan or eco plan I join. I continually head towards this goal and look for ways to help all of us become more effective in getting there. If I start to question or come out of alignment with the vision, I agree to immediately speaking with a coach about this. If not done properly, the issue may persist. I don't understand that last part. I don't think that's necessary. If not done properly, that's very vague. I think we should just delete that. So we're agreeing to speaking of a coach. If we come out of alignment, we're agreeing to staying in alignment. And if we're not in alignment, that we talk to a coach right away. What do you guys think? Does that sound good?
I think coach could benefit from a linked definition here, because the way that coach is sometimes used in the way we talk about it is way more specific than generally any coach.
Okay, cool. Let's do definition, because coaching is a term that we need to define. There's a process called coaching, which is pretty interesting. I wish they had a different name, but it's an actual official process where you help someone create a situation from the viewpoint of the other individual. And so that's also a definition that might need to be in there also. So yeah, let's add that. And Sam, are you able to? Oh, you got RTT. He did it. Bam. So
I have a question in regard to the way that this is worded. To me, kind of implies that, like it says, if I start to question or come out of alignment with the vision, I agree to immediately speak with a coach about this. It insinuates to some degree that we're bypassing a basic discussion with the team or the creators of the Gen Plan or Eco Plan. Like any subtle misalignment could be potentially alleviated with just a conversation with the team. That we don't need to go straight to a coach, I don't think.
There's a progression here that has already been identified, and it's speak with your teammate or someone of your choice or whoever's, and then go to a coach, and then go to the whole team, to everyone. And that is, I believe, in solutionary culture now. But if we define it and take it out and snip it, we could actually fit that in here. Use the progress of progression, you know, or something. Oliver?
I guess.
Yeah, I think if we add just like 2 or 3 words here, it would solve the honor's point, which is
Yeah,
if I can't speak, or if I've tried to speak with the team and it's not worked, so I can't speak with the team, then I'll speak to a coach about it.
Okay.
Or even, you don't have to say the team, you can even say the relevant people.
Well, I think the point was to make sure that there was an agreement or disagreement first before bringing it to the whole team. There could just be a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think
think
the
that was
preference,
the idea of bringing it to a coach first. So
I think it would be a preference. Sometimes it's like I might be feeling out of alignment with the whole vision, and I might see everyone on my team as like, you know, it might be good to have a coach in some cases. I would say team or coach. And then we know if someone's speaking about this to us, we just have to understand that like that has to get solved.
I'm open to both possibilities. Just that it was, as Oliver said, the use of the terminology immediately to me highlighted
Immediately.
an intention around bypassing other options. Like,
Okay. How about my team and a coach or something like that? And a coach about this.
and or
and
a coach.
or
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that look good to everyone? Okay.
Seems good.
I agree.
Okay. Instead of I have agreed to being in alignment with the vision, how about I have agreed to remaining in alignment with the vision? In the beginning of 2F, the very first sentence.
So it's already better than being in alignment. I wonder if there's a even better way we could say it.
Yeah, I've agreed to remaining. I've agreed to
Or maintaining my alignment with the vision.
maintaining alignment. To maintaining alignment with the vision. That look good? I think it's better.
Yeah.
Anyone? Okay, all right. So as we know, this call, if anyone has anything, but just say it if they think anything. I don't so I don't have to stop and ask. I continually head towards the goal and look for ways to help all of us become more effective in getting there. In reaching our goals, or in reaching those goals. I continually head towards this goal and look for ways to help all of us become more effective in reaching those goals. Or do you think in getting there is good enough? Getting there seems, reaching those goals seems a little more clear and professional. Thoughts? I won't change it if no
I
one.
think both can work if you want to make it a bit more explicit. There's no harm in that.
Okay. Okay, cool. I continue to head towards this goal and look for ways to help all of us become more effective. It's so long. I look for ways to help all of us is kind of unnecessary, to help us become more effective in reaching these goals. How about that? Help us, all of is extra. And look for
That
ways to
sounds
help
good.
us become more effective. Yeah, it's too hard to read. Okay. I agree to honor ACT as the default form of governance and the process for change between forms of governance. If the ASPO or team within the ASPO has adopted and is using a form of governance other than ACT, I agree to honor it. Really quick, before we go too far with this, Samer, I know that you've been working on different people coming in either just to the ecosystem, just to a community, just to the ASPO, etc. Do you feel in the universal agreement fields, is it okay? Should everyone already know what an ASPO is, and is it okay to put that here? All right, just from your viewpoint. I mean, I know it's not solidified yet.
Sorry, you got bit the last.
Yeah. So I know that there's different ways of coming in. Yeah. So there's the ecosystem, the community, as different, people coming in in different ways. Do you think by this time they're reading this, they will know what an ASPO is? And do you think it's everybody that's reading the universal or coming into an ecosystem will know about this ACT and ASPO stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, we should probably have some sort of basic educational process of just like, maybe words, ideas, concepts, things cleared up beforehand before they even read it to make sure they
It will.
understand it or can go to it. Exactly.
This is after education, but there's still some people that take a certain education, maybe like just to enter an ecosystem. Like we're developing a land project, for instance, right now, and some people might come in and just pitch in, okay, which is great. They're not a member yet, they're just pitching in. However, if they want to come in and like stay on that land, do they have to be a part of an ASPO? Or can they just?
No, they don't have to. We agreed on this before that we have a role player, which like agents or guests that they can be in and just spectate what's going on there. But for that, they're gonna at least know take the basic education for the ecosystem, which include a little part about the definition of ASPO.
I would say that they would need to know what an ASPO is. Like the ecosystem itself is an ASPO. It's like telling someone like you live in a democracy and then not expecting them to understand the definition of a democracy. Like,
yeah, I think
right.
People should know what their culture is, that where they're at, their space agreements. They should understand that and the basics behind it.
I think that's the key, is the basics, is at the very least just understand the basic ideas. And one way we can help, even if there has been education, is just with the glossary, is that we can have a linked word, and if they don't understand any of it, they can click on that link and it brings them to the definition.
Okay, so I agree to honor ACT. So we're saying that anyone that's going to come into the ecosystem is going to use ACT for changes. Okay, now if we have an access economy and we have an ecosystem of local Balinese people that have their land and they want to create an access, they want to create a school and they want to be a part of this, do they have to use ACT? Sam.
Yes, and I propose that we delete if the process change between, like if they choose to use another process other than ACT, it's not on the ecosystem level.
We could do it with them, and this is what this is saying, is they could use another one. Okay.
I think the reason we wrote that here, Sama, is because it's kind of a bit educational. If we don't write it, doesn't mean it's not possible, but here it's kind of showing that we're not trying to be dictatorial to say you can only use one method. We're just saying this is the default method. If you want to use another method, you can, but use this method to instate it. And that's what I think we're trying to capture. Just to come on to the Balinese thing, I think that we can very simply explain ACT, even with one basic Bahasa video. You want to do something, you propose it, and then if everyone's aligned, then this happens, and then we do it. So I think just having the basic structure of a proposal process helps keep everyone coherent and know what we've all agreed to. So I would also agree that yes, simplified ACT version would be used with locals.
I'm open to this, as this open the chance that every time or in a repetitive terms that they use something other than ACT, which kind of change this small changes in a repetitive pattern, they could create gaps in the system.
Well, okay, so it's the default form of governance and the process to change between governments. Now, we also know that ACT doesn't cover day-to-day decisions. We need to make that really clear in the education. Otherwise, people think that they have to use ACT every time there's a decision, which is just not true. So anyway, let's make sure that we get that really clear. That ACT is specifically for updating master plan, updating gen plans and ecosystem plans, period. That's it.
No, I don't think that's true. I get your point that it's only for big level stuff. hear that, but I think that you can use ACT for new developments too, you know, which don't.
Can.
For,
You can, but this is
like,
saying,
there's a new process that I want us all to use, for example.
yeah, you can. But however, this is saying I agree to act honor as the default form of governance, meaning you use it when you're updating those. If you're doing just anything else, ideating on something, or you know, it's if you want, like, there's certain things that there's certain cases you even vote on stuff. Like you choose, hey, how are we going to make this decision, guys? Oh, let's just vote. You know, you might choose that in a smaller circumstance. So what you're committing to here is that I will use ACT as the default. So what do you mean? What does that mean? Default when update, I would say even when I would even almost put it here, when updating gen plans and
When updating major decisions.
But then you have to define what major is, so it's kind of arbitrary. It was maybe a major decision for me to get out of bed this morning.
yeah. So when
It looked like it when you first hopped on the call too, so I believe you.
so, when updating or amending, is amending a better word than updating?
Amending might be good. That might be a good way to word it.
Okay, does this look good? I want to add something else though. If the ecosystem governance trumps the ASPO. In other words, if just because the ASPO has decided to use another form of governance, so that maybe a spec plan within that ASPO can get changed because it still follows the gen plan, so it's not a big deal. It's just a spec plan. It's just on how they're going to build something. And they use a different form of governance, great. But if they're changing their gen plan, which is part of the ecosystem, they can't just use their own form of governance. Does that make sense? So if the ecosystem is still using the ACT, then the ASPO, when updating that, has to use the ACT. So in other words, ecosystem governance trumps ASPO governance. Does that make sense?
Doesn't it already say that though, when it says that ACT is the default form of governance when updating ecosystem gen plans?
And spec plans. Ecosystem, gen plans, and spec plans. I'll check changing forms of governance. If the ASPO or team of the ASPO has adopted and is using a form other than ACT, I agree to honor. That's the confusing part.
Right, but it already says it's the default form. To your point.
Yeah, but it's default. But if something else has been adopted, people are going to say, oh, well, we adopted this, so I'm going to change the gen plan by voting. However, that affects the ecosystem. So just because the ASPO chose to do that, it's not clear here.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So has adopted
So,
yeah.
let's try to reword it in a way where only using any form of decision that could be internally on, it can be done internally on the ASPO level, but not on the stuff that could affect like the ecosystem or the gen plan or the spec plan, which can affect the whole ecosystem. But they can use voting or any decision making just internally inside each ASPO, as long as it doesn't do any changes with the ecosystem and gen plan.
Yeah, I think internally is the keyword there. Like how ASPOs interact with other ASPOs within the ecosystem would still fall in line with the ecosystem infrastructure. So even if they internally chose to do something different than ACT, they'd have to maintain the knowledge that when interacting with other ASPOs, they still use ACT. So it wouldn't actually affect the ecosystem.
How about this? Ecosystem governance may still be using ACT. In these cases, the gen plan will still use ACT. the updating of a gen plan. We'll still use ACT and not the chosen governance of the ASPO. Is that clear?
Updating of gen plan, next step.
Yeah, that's
So
in
just add internally.
which the next steps are in the gen plan.
For us.
They're in it. They have to be in it. Oh, and do what? Make a note.
If ASPO or a team within the ASPO has adopted and is using a form of governance internally other than ACT, I agree to honor. But like this should not happen on the ecosystem level.
Has a if the ASPO or team that has yeah, you're right. Internally other than ACT, I agree to honor it. Yes, ecosystem governance may still sound good. Yep. All right. To state a different form of governance, members of an agreement field use the ACT. I think we already said that. I will also use ACT when changing between forms of governance. So this is obsolete, number one, right? That doesn't need to be there. It's already said above. I will use ACT as for changing between governance. So we don't need to say this. Oops.
Does it say specifically in the sense of like if we're shifting between forms?
Yeah, I'll also use ACT as the process for changing between forms.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's just get rid of that. All right. As an exit strategy from the instated form of governance, members use the ACT process to suggest returning to ACT as the main form of governance. Do we need to say that also?
I think that saying it may help some people in some tricky situations.
Okay, let's keep it then. What do you got? Everyone understand it, right? So if we're stuck in another form of governance, and we could use ACT to get back to the right one. Okay, let's leave it. So we don't get stuck in something else. I agree to always speak.
This creates more confusion between trying to use the ACT as an exit strategy or trying to use the other governance system like voting to go back to ACT, which is create more confusion between the team members.
I mean, they could switch temporarily to a dictatorship was the example. So they go, okay, for now you make the decisions. Let's just do that for the next month, and then to switch back, or you know, until this certain marker, and then to switch back, they may need to not use dictatorship, because obviously that wouldn't work.
Right. So what I'm seeing here is that we may not be able to resolve this today, because I think it will need a bit of the tech solution and like some more defined criteria where you need some type of process where there's a collective sense making that the governance is locked up or the governance is not working anymore, because you can't just have one person, you know, say put a proposal with ACT to change it. You need some type of way to alert that the new system has failed, and that forces them into using ACT to propose the way to resolve that issue, if you know what I mean.
I have something. Can we do it like this? Can we allow ASPO level ones to just screw up their own governance if they choose, if they try to change it and then they're just stuck? And then level two, since they're in an ecosystem, can we say that, can we put this to the ecosystem that if there's a governance, the ecosystem, if there's an issue, if there's a conflict between members of any team about the governance of that team, that's, you know, that's not ACT, that the ecosystem can step in and help them resolve it.
I disagree because this creates hierarchy again.
I mean, if there's a conflict, here's the thing about governance. If there's a conflict in a team, normally teams can split. And then the ecosystem can say, okay, we help you split, you know, you're serving the ecosystem. If a team's completing its goals, then it's fine. But if there's internal conflict, then you've got to find out how to resolve that on a self-organized basis. If the process of self-organization breaks down because of a hijacked form of governance that's not working, you've got to have something to step in. And if it's, you got to do something about it.
I think that we should put a note to revise this, because I think that this is like a quicker, this is something which requires more depth of really thinking about how certain processes look.
Okay.
Personally, Yana.
Yeah, I was going to say something, but I'm more in alignment with what you just stated. Let's revisit it.
Okay. This is 2G1. Let's make sure we get it 2G1. It just says 1 here. Can you change that, Simon, to 2G so we can see? I can't do it.
Make a line above and add 2G.
Okay. Can I delete this into it? There we go. All right, cool. To H, I always agree to speak the truth the best of my ability. Simple. Boom.
Boom.
To J, reallocated. To H, G, H. I understand that I may lose access to a space if I do not honor the space agreements. Okay, that's already been done. So can we delete that? That's already been said. That's a repeat for some reason. So I'm going to delete it. What happened? Okay, deleted. I understand that I can lose access to the ecosystem should I continue to break universal agreements or ecosystem agreements. I may be asked to attend a training course. If I'm required to go back to a training course, I understand there may be fees required. What do you guys think about that? Necessary, or I think it kind of is. It's like accountability. What happens if you can lose access if you continue to break the agreements or ecosystem? Well, let's take these off. Let's either call them ecosystem agreements or universal at this point. I don't think we should have both. What do you guys think? Or should we have both?
Well,
Both.
go ahead.
To me, universal would be all ecosystems, which is kind of what we're saying.
Yeah, that's that's what I get from it. Universal is is all of the ecosystems. So if we're putting together an ecosystem agreement or we're putting together a universal agreement, what are we doing? So
should we call these universal and then have ecosystems, anything that we find in the future that a specific ecosystem needs, we should just dissect later? Or
I would, given that there's only one ecosystem currently in existence and it's still so young, I would encourage that we focus more on building an ecosystem, and then in the future holding space for the development of other ecosystems. And once we're capable of actually having a consortium of ecosystems, then the larger level conversations around things that are more universal can be had in a truly decentralized fashion. Like, we could sit here and come up with conclusions for universal outlooks, but it feels rather centralized for us to assume we know what's going to develop in the next 10, 20 years.
I agree. And the education, when we educate people about these agreements and we say these are this ecosystem's agreements, that could be okay. But what do we do about that? Do we just say that this is this ecosystem, or these are ecosystem agreement templates that we're using?
Yeah, I mean, what is applied within the developing ecosystem can be done such that the room or the intention for it to expand into a more universal space is easy, but without asserting that it is universal.
It's really weird hearing your voice through the earphone.
But I don't think it limits our capacity to think universally. We just don't need to attach the definition that we're making some kind of universal law.
Okay, so what do you guys think? What's the consensus here? Is it just call it ecosystem agreements for now, and in education we clean it up and make it clear, and then we do the universal later?
yeah, that makes sense. As we get into different cultures, so that's what I look at. When I look at the ecosystem, I'm looking at different types of cultures, and in different cultures, people have different thinking patterns. So when you put together a universal agreement, the universal agreement has to be able to communicate across all ecosystems. It would seem to me, my understanding of that. So it would seem that right now we're currently a smaller group. We're building an ecosystem right now. And I would say as we start to expand across, a global area, then we might really start looking at the universal to make sure we've got the right wording that would communicate to all ecosystems. So
These belong under 2A, so I put them there. Okay, so the next one is, I understand that if I break a law, that I will have to deal with the repercussions from the legal jurisdiction that I have signed up for and am a part of. My personal actions are my own to account for, and neither the ASPO, the ecosystem, or any other human are ever responsible for my actions. Sound
This
good?
is just like a standard liability waiver.
yeah,
Okay. Cool.
people have to take responsibility.
Yeah, especially if they're part of that jurisdiction. Okay.
That's right.
All right. So you're on mute.
When you say law and jurisdiction, you're in this case referring to the jurisdiction of the ecosystem and the laws created there within, or
No.
just in total?
No, so we don't have laws or legal. This is legal. If anything, we have, what we're doing is lawful, and it's private agreements. It's private contracts and private agreements. So legal jurisdiction dictates the government that they are living under or abiding by, whatever jurisdiction, if that's Hawaii or Africa or whatever.
I think here would be a good space to have also a linked definition, just for those who are curious to go, oh, legal, okay, what do they really mean by this? And they can see, oh, we're talking about
Legal jurisdiction.
Government jurisdiction, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty much government. I mean, it's not going to be legal anything else. It's legal government jurisdiction. Should we just add in government, legal government jurisdiction?
I think it's better to not have the word government in these agreements for safety purposes,
Okay.
but to have it findable as a step 2.
Right. Good. Here we go. 3E. The agreement fields support treating other ASPO members as family. I will use processes for remediation and growth based on concepts of family that are available with other ASPO members regardless of their relationship to me. What do you guys think about this? Think it's helpful, necessary? What do you think?
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds like it creates the concept that we're more than just a group of people getting together. We've got a tighter alliance, so we're a family.
Yeah. These need definition.
I feel like without trying to mess order up or anything, this type of thing could be even more powerful said sooner, because then it helps kind of contextualize everything you're reading. It's like, if you say, okay, these agreements are between me and family members, but there's still agreements for us to be clear so that we can honor and respect each other. It could be a nice framing.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds good.
You mean in the education earlier?
Also in the education, but it could also be earlier in this agreement field, kind of as an introduction, even like that we're family members and we're agreeing to act in that way. And we created these and engaging in these agreements to be able to honor each other as family members and respect one another.
Do that. And we could also put it, as early as our there we go. We could also put it as early as our marketing. Even.
When you read it, I was curious as to the choice of word family, which I'm in alignment with. I was thinking of whether tribe would be more applicable or not.
In this case, I don't think so, because people get weirded.
Sure.
But I like it. I'm all for tribe. There's some people that don't understand
Yeah.
it. All right.
Yeah, some people might not understand it, but like I get it, you know, tribe, family, same thing, you know, but some people have different concepts. Some people don't use the word, but
Hey, we're doing pretty good, guys. We're almost actually close to the bottom here. All right, 3F. Co-creation is an art. I agree to learning material offered here and being an open, willing participant to the experiment of co-creation. Okay. I will make specific co-creator agreements and agree to abide by them. If I don't abide by them and I participate in blocking, coercion, etc., I realize I may not be able to enter spaces with my co-creator badge, even if I've taken the education. So let me break this down. Co-creation is an art. I agree to learning the material of what it is to be a co-creator, becoming a co-creator. But if I don't abide by that what it looks like to be a co-creator, I'm blocking, coercion, I'm using stuff that's identified as not co-creative, then I could lose access to those spaces. Even if I'm a co-creator, my badge allows me to go in. That's still not very clear. I don't know how that looks. Do you lose
To
your
me,
badge?
yeah, that's what I was gonna say is like, I get what you're saying here. There are cases where you may just lose access and you'll still be a co-creator, and that'll be case by case. But I think the systemic thing here is that you could lose your badge, and the badges are usually what give you access. They may not just be co-creator badge, there may be other badges too. But it's the loss of that badge which would withdraw your access, in the way I see it.
And it's interesting though, because some badges are education. Like I've learned to be a doctor. Like you can't really lose it because you know that. Unless times change and new techniques come on and you don't take the updated education. And so you don't have the latest knowledge on how to fix things. Then of course you could have an outdated badge or one that's not applicable.
Or you get rusty, or the badge is the same, but maybe you haven't practiced medicine in 5 years. And I mean, technically you're still a doctor, but I probably wouldn't want to get treated by you.
So in this case, what do we do with this one? Co-creation is an art. I agree to learning material offered here. Offered here. Where's here? Offered. And being an open, willing participant to the experiment of co-creation. So you're agreeing to being a being an open, willing participant to the experiment of co-creation. So you're basically saying you align with the idea of co-creation and you're willing to give it a shot. I will make specific co-creator agreements and agree to abide by them. I don't think we need that. This part, I don't think we need. I think it's extra. I think it's obvious. Do we need that?
Jana, you're on mute.
Yeah, I think you can delete that sentence, and then it would also further delete the beginning of the next sentence. You could just,
yeah.
I'd love to share something that comes up for me. It came up when we did the as per onboarding agreements a few months ago, which is that I feel like there's a potential for once this gets consolidated to have a separate version, which is the unpacked version, where for people who want to, under each agreement is like a small paragraph explaining the logic and reasoning behind it. It's not you don't have to agree to the logic and reasoning. It's just like a further definition. And so some of these things, like what you're taking out now, Josh, is something which I could see further explained there. So if someone's trying to look at that agreement and they want to go into more detail, then they would want to see the information piece that they can make agreements with anyone, co-creator agreements, but it's not needed as the main document, but more supporting material.
What do you want me to do? Put in a comment next time?
I'll throw it on my to-do list.
Okay.
That's the actionable culture right there.
Okay, so let's read it again. Co-creation is an art. I agree to learning material offered and being an open, willing participant to the experiment of co-creation. if I participate in blocking, coercion, or other activities that go against co-creation, I realize I may not be able to enter spaces with my co-creator badge, even if I take an education. So let's change that. I realize I may lose my co-creator status. How about that?
Yeah.
I may lose my.
And in the future, there'll be a process for how that would look, and which ASPO would help make those decisions and have dispute resolution and things like that. And that could be further explained. But I think for now, keeping it vague is just saying like, this is a possibility, I think is enough.
Okay. All right. So does everyone like that in the universal? Do we feel that everyone coming into a universal field should be aware of that and agree to that?
Can you read that again? Because I don't have access to see it right now. So,
Okay. Co-creation is an art. I agree to learning material offered and being an open, willing participant to the experiment of co-creation. If I participate in blocking, coercion, or other activities that go against co-creation, I realize I may lose my co-creator status.
yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah.
Like basically just be a decent person and try your best to work as a team.
How simple, you know? Some people just make it so complicated, don't they?
All right, 6B. If we
You know,
lose,
you wish you could just say that right at the beginning. Everybody must be a decent person. Everybody go, yeah, okay, got it. And that's just the end of it, right?
done.
But unfortunately, in this world, we have to really define all these points, you know?
Yeah. Don't kill your neighbor and steal all their crap.
That's right.
But I mean, the more that we refine these, not to try to run us synonymously with any kind of religion, but the more that we refine these and the clearer and more simplified they get, it's like a code of conduct similar to what one might look at the 10 Commandments as, you know.
Right. You look at the 10 Commandments, it was simple, you know, it was just like 10 points. If you got it, you got it, you know. And you'd look at the opposite of that. Look at the US laws. It's gotten so bad that, you know, if you go and stab a guy with a fork, well, there's no law that says I can't stab him with a fork, you know. And they just go off in a tangent, you know, it's insane. So
Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, gotta have some emergence here. All right. Hold on. You want to read some of these or no?
I can. Now we're on
6B. 6B.
Okay. If we lose respect for someone because of their actions or decisions, for example, if they do something we consider immoral, it's our responsibility to take aligned steps to resolve our tensions as outlined in the solutionary culture. Pretty straightforward to me. I would just slightly adjust the typing to put the example in parentheses.
Which example? Go ahead. Do you have access?
I don't know why, no.
I should. Oh, it's in my personal space. Maybe I need to move it somewhere.
Oh no, now I do. I just had to actually enter the document. I would just do that.
Example they did. Okay.
It's our responsibility to take aligned steps to resolve our tensions. Yeah, and as long as solutionary culture document is clear, then
Yeah,
bullet point very clear.
I think that one's pretty good.
I agree to honor myself and others by asking them questions and seeking understanding instead of getting upset or making assumptions or judgments.
That's easy. It's actually a measurable one. I love that one. It comes up so much. But if it could be worded better, of course, say something. But it's been a solid one.
Yeah, the point is sound. Anyone else have any thoughts? No? Cool. Then the next one is, I agree to speaking.
Yeah, there's something wrong there. I agree to and to. I agree to speaking. Okay, go ahead. Try again.
Okay. I agree to speaking in a way that is supportive of others, especially when about others, whether or not they are physically present, and when I am speaking to them directly. Okay. Is it helpful? Is it relevant? Is it kind? Yeah. Don't be a piece of shit. Cool. Everyone's good?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. I like it. 7D. Stability provided by an agreement field is an advantage. I will not request, enter, or imply tacit agreements of significant consequence. Some expansion probably is necessary. How are we defining tacit here?
Right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I clicked on it. If you refer to someone or approval, you mean they are agreeing. So, don't make assumptions is basically what you're trying to say. Providing agreement, imply.
You're on mute, Oliver.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's basically like the opposite would be actively agreeing, saying, yes, I agree, I'm in alignment. But a tacit agreement would be like, okay, so unless anyone objects right now, we're going to go forward straight away with this proposal. And then just some people might be scared to like raise their voice or say something, and they'll be tacitly agreeing in that situation. But it's a bit tricky. It's more like trying to, I think, make things clear rather than shady agreements, which are unspoken agreements. Like, oh, you're still around, so you're still agreeing to the way we're doing things, for example. That's a tacit agreement.
So I would, in that context, I would encourage a reformation of the syntax. Like we could say, I will over communicate to the point of full clarity when deemed necessary, as opposed to passive aggressive agreement.
I will gain clear consent. If I mean, we're all making the agreements together, so it's not like one person is getting consent of everyone. I mean, I guess if it's your proposal, yes, you're looking for the consent of everyone. You're making sure that everyone has a chance to agree. That's why we have a proposal process. I'm not sure if we were using an agreement like in our team, if we weren't using the act necessarily, we're just moving forward on something, I could see how this can apply. With act, obviously it's covered because we have a proposal process that can't be tacit.
So what if I add a little bit here that just says, I will be forthright with presenting my opinion and will not request, enter, or imply tacit agreements. So basically, like the point we're trying to get at is,
sorry.
Yeah, I was just seeking a little bit further clarity so that the sentence doesn't appear as confusing. But
Oliver made this one, so maybe Oliver, do you have a suggestion of how to make this clear, or do it, or what?
I didn't make this. I was in on a team meeting, but I'm happy to dive in.
Do we need it?
It's a valid point.
Okay.
I'm not requesting. I would just, instead of doing what we won't do, like establishing what we will do, like always focus on what you want to create. So I'd say, okay, stability provided by agreement fields is an advantage. That's just like a statement. I will enforce, or I will help strengthen agreement fields by actively speaking my engagement or alignment or misalignment with them when it arises, such that it can be clearly communicated and understood.
Odd. I will instead strengthen. Strengthen what? Strengthen the agreement fields by seeking full consent. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Not
Some
not
people will,
consensus. Not
yeah,
consensus.
some people will just glide over it and say, I'm in agreement. They've got to be held responsible for saying that too. If they say they're in agreement and then later they say, well, you know, I'm not really in agreement. Well, then that's fine. Then, you know, but they've already agreed to it now. You know, we can't just assume that there are people that don't understand and now we've got to somehow accommodate. We've got to assume that when people say, yes, I understand and I agree, that they have agreed. Now, if they change their mind or they finally figured out what it really means, that's a totally different thing. So now that's got to be taken up as a separate thing in their decision, you know, as far as how they're going to work with that group now at that point. If it can be changed, if it can be worded differently so they're more in agreement, you know, but that's a whole different thing. The person's we still got to expect that when people are there, we can be as communicative and as clear with our communication. But we've also got to, you know, when that person says, yes, I understand and I'm in agreement, we've got to trust that is what it is, you know, too.
Yeah.
So.
And I put a definition there. I put getting the person's involvement in the decision, using the process chosen. So that doesn't mean they're consensus. It just means, hey, let's all decide together. Let's make it clear. And versus just saying, okay, let's all go, and then running off and assuming.
Yeah. I like it.
All right.
Yeah.
All good, everyone?
Yeah, it's good.
Cool. Okay, 7E. I agree to focusing on the solutions that have been adopted by the ecosystem. I will accept feedback alluding to my ability to be solution oriented, and if I cannot focus on solutions and continually bring in problems to the ASPO, I can be called in for this.
Called in is a specific definition that if someone doesn't know what that means, then will be confusing. So that definitely needs to be highlighted.
That was my first point that I was going to bring up. So thank you, Oliver. What's with the term alluding in the sentence? Who typed the sentence?
I will accept feedback. Alluding, is it spelled wrong?
It's just from my immediate perspective doesn't fit in this sentence, so I'm confused.
So alluding means I will accept feedback that points to my ability to be solution oriented. So it doesn't mean that you're not being solution oriented, because maybe it's just saying I will accept feedback that says, hey, I don't think you're being solution oriented here.
So maybe I accept feedback that helps me become solution oriented, or it aims intended to help me be solution oriented, something like that.
Yeah, or you could say I will accept feedback that alludes to my ability to be solution oriented. But okay, I get the point you're trying to get at now. It would be that alludes to. But okay.
Yeah, let's make it simpler, because alluding is a word which maybe not everyone understands. We want this to be accessible.
Yeah.
I will accept feedback that enhances my ability to be solution oriented.
Yeah, we want a monkey to be able to agree to this.
We got a little way to go before that.
If I cannot
You read it to the monkey and then you offer him a banana and he goes, yes.
All right, monkeys and consent. And if I cannot focus on solutions and continually bringing problems to the ASPO or ecosystem, or just ASPO?
Good question.
You could say to my field. to my co-created field to those
yeah,
around me.
Yeah, I think so. To just problems, leave it, period. Take out this. I'm gonna take it out.
Yeah,
I'm
it
good.
doesn't need to stay to the
I'm good.
ASPO.
Also, here you're defining that it would have to be a continuous stream of problems,
Yeah.
whereas it could be that someone brings in one major problem and gets called in, you know, without it having to be continuous. So we could say that enhances my ability to be solution oriented, and if I cannot focus on solutions, for example, continue to bring in problems, I can be called in for this, because it's not the only cases. It's not the only cases. Just if I continue to bring in problems.
Wait,
What
you're
if
saying-
what if we get rid of, so you said get rid of continually and then use continue.
Yeah, that's how
So, but I like the point that you're getting at here, Oliver. So if I cannot focus on solutions and cause more problems than I bring in good, or something like that.
I like continually. I just think that like people should always have a chance. You know, it's like gentle warning. You know, hey, do you remember the agreements? Da da da, and then.
So what about if you said an incoherent behavior persists? I cannot focus on solutions and coherent behavior persists.
I think this points more to, so we have the people that are not defining agreements and we have solutionary culture. So if someone's not doing something that's bringing in a problem that we can identify, we can create a solution for that through our solutionary culture, create a new agreement and solve it, or reform the team. All that's in place. This is speaking to someone's attitude about talking about problems like, oh, that, you know, we can't ever fix anything around here. The weeds keep growing and they're never going to stop. And they just keep talking problems and they don't ever, this is more about people's speech.
If that's the case, if we're just talking about their current speech, it could just be they're in a bad attitude and they just need to step away from the meeting right then. You know, and when they're in a better attitude, then they can get back involved. You know,
that would be a gentle warning.
Simple.
That would be a gentle warning. Yeah. That would be the warnings. If they continually do it, then they're actually just becoming disruptive because they're not keeping up with the meetings. They're always up. They're always problem focused. So yeah, so that's what that one's about. If that changes,
I would consider changing the word problem to something else.
Okay. Bring
continually create disharmony.
If I cannot
disharmony
focus and continually focus on instead of bring in problems, but focus on problems.
Yeah, that could be one. Is focusing on problems is definitely something
like focusing on problems, not solutions. You know.
Yeah. That to me makes it a lot more approachable.
Yeah.
We could also add because if you're focusing on problems, you're creating disharmony. We could add that there just to be slightly more descriptive in like why.
Yeah, like continually focus on problems or creates disharmony.
Yeah, or bringing in disharmony.
Or creating disharmony.
Yeah, creating disharmony sounds right.
Because people might show up in a way that doesn't cause like explicit, tangible problems, but their presence is still manifesting significant disharmony within the collective. So,
all right, cool. All right, I know who you're thinking about right now.
Well, but then exactly, that individual falls back and says, I didn't do anything wrong. I haven't caused any problems. It's like, you fucked everything up, man.
Okay, all right, let's move on. So 8B.
8B. When following agreements, I will first look at universal ecosystem access, stewardship, ASPO, culture code, and then to any personal agreements or agreements outside of the ASPO. That's a confusing sentence, but okay. This includes legal code, as those are laws and not agreements. I will consider the agreement fields the source of authority and not other agreements made by outside sources.
Okay,
This is a controversial agreement.
it's wordy too. It's, I think the point was to say, okay, so I think we can take a lot of it out and just simplify it. The point is, there's a hierarchy of its ecosystem at the top, is the most trumping, then access, then stewardship, then ASPO, then culture code.
Okay, so when following agreements, I will follow this line of that because it's not implied in the way the sentence is structured, that it's a kind of a hierarchical approach to solving the problem. So
When I'm following agreements, I will look at them in the following order, or I will consider
yeah,
their importance.
I will approach when following agreements. I understand that, yeah, certain domains.
I will evaluate which ones apply in the following order.
Which ones are most important?
Superseding.
Supersede. Okay, so when following agreements.
I will
How about-
evaluate which
we don't
ones
have to say that.
supersede.
We don't have to say I wouldn't follow agreements. Want me to say the following fields are to be viewed in order as, you know, most important to least. How about that?
No, but it's not a matter of importance or not, and it's not even necessarily linear. It's more like containers within containers, right? So
Mhm.
like when following agreements, I understand that certain agreement fields encompass others.
Yeah, and I will use the following order of scopes as a guide.
Yeah, let's do that sentence. Can I type, Josh?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm okay with it. I'm reading it.
When following agreements, I understand that certain agreement fields contain others there within. And what did you say, Oliver?
Should be looked at first.
And I will use the following order as a guide, or scope, order of scope as a guide.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then I would just, for sake of clarity around structure, I would change all of this here.
We can take personal agreements out because those don't really matter. I mean, that's neither here nor there. If someone has a personal agreement, then yeah, it goes underneath it, but I don't think we have to say it because
Yeah, I think culture code, I agree. So delete.
yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Add space agreement instead. It's missing there.
Or outside. Let's take those out. Okay, go ahead.
Samo was saying to add space agreements.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm gonna take these out. If that's okay, I'm gonna delete this whole thing.
yes. And then
So
summary, right?
ASPO, space agreements, and then culture code, right?
Yeah, that's where I just added it.
Okay, awesome. Cool.
And following agreements, I understand that certain agreement fields contain others there within. I will use the following order of scope as guide.
As a guide.
In following agreements, I understand that certain agreement fields contain others there. Take within. Take there out.
Others there
within.
within. I mean, yeah, you can get rid of there, sure, but it's more just good.
Others within. In following agreements, I understand that certain agreement fields contain others within them.
Yeah, that's what there within means, but okay.
I was following order of scope as a guide. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Does that sound like it's important to have here? Or do we put it in the education and build it into the system, or do we need people to agree to this?
I think it's an important, and I think that this would be one of those prime examples that Oliver was talking about, where a paragraph or two explaining what this means as a toggle would be highly beneficial. So I can expand on this point in the following 5 or 6 sentences so that it's fully clear. But in terms of like having a bullet point on a like ecosystem agreement template type thing, and I think this is good.
And I think that'll be in the education too. It's kind of that balance between what technically is this an agreement that they're agreeing to, not really, but them reading it at this point in time is going to strengthen the ability to be an effective co-creator. So it's like you kind of got to, yeah, include things here and there which help people understand and relates to what they're doing.
Awesome. Everyone else happy with this one as it sets?
Yeah.
Right. 2 more.
8D. I agree to not imposing my will upon others as they are sovereign. I will not use any threats of any kind while participating in an ASCO or within an ecosystem. I think we should make it positively oriented as opposed to negatively oriented. I acknowledge that all individuals are sovereign, and
therefore will not impose my will.
Yeah.
Imposing my will is vague, so threats are very specific. If you don't do this, I will take away your allowance. I will tell everyone. Those are threats, right? So instead of threatening, you just say, hey, can you please not do that? So that's the point of this agreement, is threats are unnecessary and we don't want people threatening each other. So I don't know how to make it without the word threat.
I don't think that the word threat is inherently bad. Just the way that we structure the sentence can guide the intellectual framework of the individual reading it towards something positive, as opposed to resonating within a.
Okay.
So how about this? I agree to honor others' sovereignty. And yeah.
Instead of threats, I will ask for alignment versus using using threats or blah 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 behavior, or this for that behavior. Like it's like a carrot or a threat, or you're kind of using something to make them decide when they're not deciding out of their own free will. You are trying to force it. You're entering their energetic bubble to try to get them to do something.
So if you want to keep it positive here, you can say, and respect their free will. If you want to have the more specificity than what it is now works too, and will not impose my will upon them.
Yeah, like I'm gonna move into your apartment, and there's nothing you can do about it since the room's open and the landlord allowed me to.
Yeah, but in parentheses also then like encapsulates the negative connotation and places it somewhere else than the initial point. So I think like this is good. Yeah.
Read on other side will not impose my will upon them. Let's just say, let's take out will not impose my will upon them. Just to say in respect, I will respect their free will.
Yeah.
Say let's say like I will not impose my will in a negative fashion or create negativity, something to that effect. Sometimes it's important to get a point across of something or the importance of it without also being considered that you're trying to override them,
What do you want to say? I missed.
You can go too far to where you're negative about it. So
what did you say in the beginning? How do you want to change it? What were you saying, Stephen?
I was saying, maybe like impose your will, that like do not impose your will in a, I don't know how to word it exactly, but in a negative fashion to create negativity, you know, or something like that, you know.
So threats,
I would say it's more about the violation of their will. So imposing your will is fine as long as you're not violating their will.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And we could probably word that in there without violating.
and that goes near the
Yeah.
tacit agreements is right next to this. This should
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
I'm gonna move it up to that right below. So I don't know how to change it to say that because that's vague. Threats are very specific and measurable. You know, if you do this, then I'll do that. You know, it's kind of a threat. I don't know how to just say, hey, don't be manipulative. It's like, what's that mean?
Don't impose your will in a threatening manner. How's that? So
And
it sort of gives a little bit of a light touch to it, but it also says, hey, there was actually a threatening manner, you know, or something that
threat, or there's another word. There's I won't use threats, or I won't be using a threatening manner, threatening, or there's another form of energetic penetration that's like you're not really asking, yeah, but you're not asking for their agreement. You're making like a carrot, like using like a bait, like using some sort of other like position, like, oh, well, because I'm the boss, I just want to let you know this is an important decision and I am your boss.
Well, what if we
you could
say,
say with
like,
no attempts to bribe. I don't know.
Bribery.
or attempts? I was gonna say not use any threats, coercion, or other attempts of manipulation.
Can we put
Yeah,
the word
coercion covers that.
Yeah.
Can we put bribery in there too? Because I think that's very clear to measure bribery. Hey, if you do this, then this. If you do this, I will get, you know, well, bribery is hard to define too, though, because it's like, hey, if you go on vacation with us, then, you know, I'll pay your next month's rent. Is that bribery? Not really.
It's bribery used in a specific focal point of positive encouragement, but I think generally speaking, bribery is something we don't want. You know, like, even the person going on vacation with you, they might have fun on that vacation, but they're only doing it because you're guiding them to do it. So,
I mean, you could say anytime you offer someone a job, it's bribery. Hey, can you do this job for me? I'll pay you $100. You're bribing.
Yeah, I don't think I think we're really talking about coercion and intentions that are selfish and not pure and like trying to only validate the self. So how do we capture that versus, you know, I might offer someone a job out of really good will to help them out. That's a completely different scenario that we're not addressing.
So are we discussing whether or not the way the sentence is currently structured, if we need the term bribery or not? Because I have threats, coercion, bribery, or manipulation. We could delete bribery.
Coercion's vague. How can they? What I mean, how do we say that's coercion? I mean, I understand what's being said, but how do you say?
But they're all in there, Josh. There's coercion, bribery, and manipulation. So between them, I think people should get the idea that.
Is there a legal definition? Can you be
coercion
tried for coercion?
Yeah, the coercion is the practice of persuading someone to do something by using force or threats.
How about blackmail? That's better than bribery.
Yeah.
That's
I think that gets more to your point. I agree.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I'm okay with it. I mean, I love striving to not have manipulation, and it's like inherent in our behavior. I truly believe that when you're paying someone a paycheck for them to do something for you, that's manipulative. I believe that we can get to a system where everyone's you know, working out of free will. The system says if you don't do this, you don't get reciprocated, period. And that we all have common goals and we all work towards them versus having to say, hey, if you do this for this money, otherwise, you know.
Right.
Well, I think there can be manipulation, and then there can be just basic making of agreements. if you make an agreement with someone, but you're not straight up about the facts of the matter, and you've basically been dishonest in some manner, then you're sort of getting into the area of manipulation. But if
Okay.
you've made a clear agreement and they've said, I need you to do this and you do that, but it's not going to really work inside of our ecosystem. It's mostly going to work outside the system when we're hiring people to do something for us.
Yeah.
But we just have to have clear agreements so that we're not violating, any type of, dishonesty or creating any manipulation. We just be real honest about it, create clear agreements. So, but I think within the ecosystem, we're not really going to get into that type of behavior. I don't think. I don't see how it would ever apply. I think if somebody started to do that in the ecosystem, everybody would just sort of look at each other like, "Are you really saying that?" And then somebody would take them over to the side and say, "Hey, we don't do that here." So.
It's a good point, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this captures it well. My only concern is a bit similar to yours, Josh, is that manipulation from one perspective is used all the time. Like what we're really talking about is like, bad manipulation, because like some people even say that manipulating reality just by what you believe, you're manipulating reality, so it's one of those words which has a gray zone to it. So saying no manipulation of any kind, well, according to some people's definition, you're always manipulating everything every time you speak.
I don't think we should have the word manipulation in there. I'm sorry. I mean, I think they get it without it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so I will not use
Good
threats,
point.
coercion, blackmail, or other. Why don't we just say threats, coercion, or blackmail?
Other scarcity-based control tactics.
One good point that I don't know exactly where it would fit into this arrangement, but one good point. Let me just clarify the concept, and then you can sort of get how it would be worded. But one of the things they do in government circles is before a person can even run for election, they usually have something on him. You see, like he has some debts, and they say, well, hey, you know what? We'll help you cover those debts, but you need to do a favor for us. So one of the points we might want to do is not allow, maybe people just get the viewpoint of not having anything like that coming into the group that could cause them to, have some sort of bribery done to them that could cause problems to the group. Like a guy comes into the group, he's got some debts, but he hasn't really made it clear, and it's really important because he could get arrested, and all of a sudden somebody comes along and says, hey, I notice you're part of this group. I'd like you to do this, and I'll help pay for your bills.
Yeah, or a loan shark or something.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it'd be real good ethics wise, like a good, integrity of people that when they come in, they're clean, and they make sure that they don't have any of these type things hanging over their head, and they make that clear. And I think that would probably handle a lot of that from occurring, where somebody could come in and take control and manipulate somebody. If people are clean and their integrity's good, they usually can't be touched. So
I see debt-free as different. I see we always have a new chance at life, and anything in the past is just doesn't exist in the present moment unless, but we live in a world that's based on debt. So that someone might say, oh, well, you owe blah, blah, blah. So I think helping people clear that up and get past it, whether that's to pay it off or to, resolve it in other ways that sort of doesn't have it in their mind, at least present. I think that's very important. We were actually talking about that yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that as a group, as a community, with every individual that comes in. So
and also, like, just to riff off that, in terms of establishing virtue and values and principles within our developing culture, when we give, we do so from a place of non-attachment. Like I'm like, as a culture code, right? Like we don't give to another person, even if on behalf of the ecosystem, because we anticipate something in return. Like
Right.
if for example, someone comes into the ecosystem with $100,000 debt, but the ecosystem has the capacity to relinquish that from their field, the ecosystem does that simply because it can, and it's in the best interest of the individual, and as a result, in the best interest of the ecosystem, without being like, oh, the ecosystem paid for you, so now you owe us X, Y, Z.
Yeah, I think both are
Yeah,
great.
we would have to, yeah,
Both are
the ecosystem would really have to determine if that is a value to the ecosystem. And if they could, if the guy was bringing, true value to the group, then yeah, I would say, yeah, but that would have to be determined at the time with each individual,
So I put in here on 8D, I agree to honor others' sovereignty and respect their free will and give with non-attachment. Is that okay? Should we put that in there, or is that not needed? I'm just putting it in there to see what it looks like.
Yeah,
I think it's fine. You can leave it or not leave it. It doesn't matter. It sounds good. It's just like it comes back to family. Would you, if your family was hungry, would you give them some food?
Yeah.
So.
All right. I'm going to read the last one. I agree that freedom is a highest priority. I don't know about highest. How about a high priority? I agree that freedom is a high priority. I will not stand in the way of anyone and their decisions, but will remain in my own integrity and my own accountability to the agreements I've made, which is, we already said that. Physical force and other agreements which are not covered in the ASBO or ecosystem will be handled by local legislation. I think we already said that too. I agree that freedom, I'm not standing in the way of anyone and their decisions, but will remain in accountability to my own agreements I've made. What do you guys think about this? There's parts that haven't been discussed, and then
Well,
repeat.
the larger essence of this, what I'm taking away from this, is that what the thing within it is that we are free to live our lives however we please, so long as the way that we live that doesn't impose upon the freedom of others.
Yeah.
And each individual is allowed to do that, so we can all be the unique, creative individual that we are, as long as we're not doing a disservice to someone else's life, right? That's the point that you're getting at.
Yeah, and this could be a part of the root truth template. I mean, it could be a further definition when people click on it too. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. It's in there.
So can we just change this to a sentence? It says like, I hold personal freedom and sovereignty to the highest regard, and will live my life through that lens, so long as it does not impose upon others' ability to align with the same.
Yeah, but I think it's more. I think it's more about standing in the way. So if someone makes a decision, they say, "I'm gonna." I mean, it's interesting because there are some decisions like they say, "Okay, I'm gonna chop that tree down in front of your window that has an eagle in it." Now, if that's against an agreement that we already made about protecting the eagle or protecting the tree or how we're going to design the village, then they're against the agreement. Now, if we didn't and they choose to do it, if it's on community property, that's one thing. If it's on their, let's say it's on their land and we think it's immoral, the other agreement says if we think something's immoral, we ask questions instead of judging. We could ask them, hey, well, what's going on? Well, and they have their reason. And they decide to cut down that tree that they have the right to cut down that has the eagle in it. And we can't look at the universal agreements. I mean, we might debate whether that's ensuring the health and thriving of all life. That's debatable. But let's say that we're upset, but it's not really our domain or our land or whatever. We have to just accept that. We can't, and that goes for anything. If someone wants to go swimming and we want them to come with us to the movies, we can't say, well, I wanted you to come to the movies with me. Like we just have to respect the decision. Unless it's against the agreements. And then if it isn't, and we see a problem, we can of course make our own agreement field, and we can even make one that doesn't allow people that cut down trees to be in our space, like whatever space we decide to be in, with others that agree the same. But does that make sense?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
saying like I've made the agreements that I've made and you've made the agreements that you've made, and you can live by your code of conduct and I'll live by mine, and as long as we both let each other do our thing, then everything will be good.
There you go. Let's reword it to that.
It's like the libertarian statement of the whole agreement field.
Okay. Well, this we don't need because this is a repeat.
The last sentence, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I will not stand in the way of anyone and their decisions.
Period. No. No, but I will remain in own integrity, my own remain in integrity, my own doesn't need to be there. In integrity
Or just
to my
more of
own
a-
account. No, I will remain in my own account, in my own accountability. I'll remain in my own accountability to the agreements I've made.
Yeah, so then I would say I will not stand in the way of anyone and the decisions, or I will not stand in the way of anyone and the agreement fields they're within, right?
No. It's not that. It's their decision. So it's not the agreement field. It's if someone does, they make a decision, meeting, like I said, it could be going to the, it might not really have to do with the, like if, unless it's defined by the agreement field, that's one thing. But if it's not, then we're not going to stand in the way of them doing it. I mean, if we don't have an agreement about someone spanking their kids and then they go spank their kids and we might be upset about it, we might need to use solutionary culture to go make a new rule, but we can't jump in there and like start wrestling with them or something.
I feel that this one's like ready. Yeah.
Ready? It's good.
Yeah.
Do you see the parentheses that I just added?
Yeah, but that's interesting. I mean, like,
You could argue that if someone's spanking their kids, that like that's not, like you said, or like, okay, like someone's free to live their life however they want, but then if they go and murder someone, then like obviously we have to do something about that because the actions that they took imposed upon the free will of another.
I get your point. I think this is like a more complex topic. And what you're trying to capture in the parentheses is this: the empowerment to people to be active enforcers of a healthy culture, versus just to be, you know, the self versus just a self focus. It's like the collective focus to take care of society too. But I think that it's going to be hard to put it all in an agreement here, and we'll need the further definition underneath. So how do we capture the high level concept and then distill it further for those who want to read more about it?
Yeah, I mean, I can type a toggle that explains a bit further and gives an example. Like if someone believes in a different way of living in their home than you do, like they're free to do that, and you're free to live in your home however you want. But the second that someone goes out and hurts another individual because they don't live in their home in the same way, then it becomes a problem.
Check out the non-aggression principle that I linked. This was the one which is in the Thrive movie, which is basically not use aggression or threaten aggression upon any other being apart from in true self-defense. Is a non-aggression principle.
Yeah.
And so it could be some way just referenced here also, like you know, basically, yeah, I'll let you do what you want while respecting the non-aggression. And if your actions are causing me to choose self-defense, and that falls into non-aggression.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly the point that I'm trying to highlight. So are you insinuating that we link this in this statement for further explanation, or?
Pretty cool. I mean, Thrive has a pretty good definition of that. And I think I like it. I really like, I mean, we could link to Thrive and type in, instead of all the actions do not impose upon the freedom, I should just say we align with the non-aggression principles and link it to
So-
Thrive.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And that makes it simple. Yeah. And they do describe it pretty well, I think. So
I think we could take out that and just at the end say we align, at the end we could say we align with non-aggression principles.
Yeah, or it could be what goes in the parentheses instead, in alignment with non.
Either way. I think at the end would be good because we can define it and then they can read it so they're not stuck reading something in the middle of it.
So with the addition of the non-aggression principle piece, we want to delete the parentheses. Is that the conclusion?
I think that yeah, we can further unpack it. And in the end of the day, whether or not they've agreed to this, if someone feels they need to stand up for someone who's being abused, then they will, you know, and that's going to be their human nature. And that's not something we necessarily need to capture the moments in here.
To a certain extent, man, you'd be surprised how much crime occurs in the middle. Like there's stories of really horrific crimes happening in New York City with 50, 60 eyewitnesses, and everyone just assumes that like someone else is going to take care of it, and no one does based on that assumption. So there's also a certain degree of empowerment in highlighting that like our culture operates on like an action orient. Like when someone crosses that line, whatever that line is, it needs to be dealt with, you know.
Sure. I think it's good as it is. We're approaching the hour.
Yep. I think we're great. We did a good job.
yeah, there's 3 points that modern governments seem to try to take control of, and that's governance, finance, and security. And if you really look at it, if you the people are supposed to be in charge of the society, then us the people should be in control of the governance, the security, and the finance. So that means if somebody comes in, you don't call the police. Whoever's there, they all come to action and help whatever the situation is, you know, and they handle it, and it can be done non-aggressively, you know. So, you know, in most situations, a person's, you know, you see this in some countries where they really handle it well. You know, you guy comes in and he's starting to threaten and yell and scream, and you see the police officer from like Spain just gets out from behind the counter and he nicely walks over to him and he has a talk with him and he clears it up and it's all handled. Here in America, unfortunately, you see the cops just jump him and kick his ass, and it's totally inappropriate, you know.
Yeah.
You would expect more from you know, the US government, you know, but
Nope. I saw them.
unfortunately, people have gone a little too far the other direction here. So
I saw them jump on, and about 5 of them beat up a guy that had just got hit by a car because he got up and started walking off. They didn't know who he was. They were confused. They started literally attacking him. Just got hit.
yeah, it's crazy.
On the road, unconscious. Anyway, so I'm going to put, these are official modification from the declaration because this is an official call that we have yearly where we modify them. And so this is an official modification. So now we have we've combined our ecosystem agreements with the declaration. What do you guys think about that?
I like it. Everything looks good, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, I actually think it's pretty awesome how there's a good balance of not too many agreements, but the ones that are there are like really clear as to why they're needed. And in some of our agreement fields, we have like a lot of agreements, and here I think it's like a really good concise amount that someone can get through and feel well supported and structured without being overwhelmed.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Cool.
All right.
Is everybody in alignment with me going through and adding a toggle beneath the bullet points that are necessary for further explanation, and then sending a rough draft document to everyone on the call for review?
Sure, that sounds good. I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Hey, Josh, send us, put out the recording of this too, so we can all get the video of it. That'll be good. We can all review it and review the documents as well. So
Perfect. I'm going to post it. There's two places. There's the Facebook group, which is called Declaration of Agreements, which has most people. I have to update it and pull people on. There's an email list, which I can still send it to and say, hey, it's on the Facebook group. I think that would be the best, but there's a lot of people not on Facebook now also. The other place is what used to be Empower and Thrive Mighty Networks, which we've switched to Green Earth Vision Mighty Networks, which has a lot of the other people on it too. So I could do both. Post it both.
yeah, post it in both. That'll be fine.
Okay.
Personally, I think it's best to keep things off Facebook servers. Although I won't stand in the way of that, because I am happy with how we've had this meeting, that actually those are some space agreements which could have been established before as to how the video recording would be processed.
Yeah. Well, I could just tell the declaration agreements go here, and that way that gets people to sign up on the Mighty Networks for now.
Yeah.
You know, two good secure
Cool.
communication lines would be Proton Mail for emails and Signal for messaging. So if we want to get that, I've got
Yeah. We got Proton now.
you know,
Yeah,
so
and
I've
Sync
got both of
for
those,
Drive.
so.
Using Sync instead of Google Drive, you could upload this to Sync, and I think we have a Helix Sync account and a JV Helix, and essentially from there, anyone who wants to see the recording would just have to ask and would be added. That way, it's just not out in the open for people we don't know looking at it, but someone who asks, they can just be added.
Yeah, it sounds good. Send me a link to Sync account, so that'd be good. So
Is it super private? I know there's one that the guy that made Plandemic, Mickey Willis, is using Getter, Gettr, which I'm sure is super private if he's using it because he was banned. But anyway, I haven't looked at it yet.
But Sync is very usable, and I think we already have an account. It's like a Google Drive type thing. But if you find something better, I think
Let's
we're always
explore.
open to
Yeah, let's
solutions.
explore it. Let's look at it before we send it out
Cool.
to see if we're
Sama,
gonna
maybe you could
change.
pick up on that too, as you know quite a lot about these
Sure.
tools.
sure.
Cool. Good to meet you, Steve.
All right, it was nice to meet you all there. John, what's the other, Sammy or Sammer?
Summer, yeah.
Sammer, John, Oliver. Hey, Josh. All right, it was good to meet you all, and I thought that was a good meeting. It went really well. I think that went really smooth, so.
Yeah, awesome. Boom, boom.
All right,
Awesome, guys. Talk to you soon. Thanks.
all right. See you
Take
guys
care.
later. You have a
Yeah.
good one.
See you later.